All right, good morning. I'm not sure if or when Ms. Riley will be here. Remember, she's our student success person, so she could come in at any time. If she does, I'm going to stop and yield the floor to her. There has been an update. I haven't read it. I just got it, supposedly on uh, how they're doing COVID here. I just looked at the beginning. It just, basically what it said here was everyone at Perryville and Wentzville who is not fully vaccinated must still wear a mask. And if that's the case, I don't see where that's changed. But you might want to take a look at that. That's up here. Probably you got the email as well. But what I'll do is I'm going to forward the email that I got to all of you. All right. That's first thing. And the second thing is you got this morning, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to be surprised if the majority of you finish this test tomorrow in an hour, if not less. What I've given you here is harder than the test is. Okay? Um, I'm going to recommend that when you're doing the test, for instance, you're not going to be asked to create like a nav bar. It's one page that you're creating. And some of the stuff, I'm not sure how Evan's doing it because they asked you to do something that we haven't discussed yet. So I pulled that out of there to make it even easier. So as it says, using what you've learned in class, your books, notes, etc., try to complete this pretest in 2 hours. Again, it won't be graded. So what we're doing here is I kind of changed it. I started by saying you are to create a 3-page website for a fictional gym, but then I changed it to say, let's just imagine that Planet Fitness didn't have a website. They do. But let's pretend they didn't, and they came in and they asked you to create one for them. All right? So it's as it says, each page of the website should have a favicon on it and a logo. What does that mean for the logo? You can just put a logo up here. If you remember when I showed you, we did that one in class, and I put up in my head section, Rankin Technical College, and we put like our first website or whatever in the header section. You can put an image in there. All right. Now, as far as that goes, just so you know this, and there's more than what I'm about to show you, but there is a site called unsplash.com. They have royalty-free pictures. So if I come in there and I type in, how about just workout? All right. And if there's, let's just say, oh, wow, I really like this picture right here of this person, with the ropes and whatever. You can click on it. And then as soon as I click on it, if you look on the screen, it comes up and it says, okay, do you want to download it? Yes. And let's just say that I want to download, I'll grab the medium size, 1920 by 1282. So I click right there. Now, usually when you do this, you get this. All right. And what I do is in my alt tag for the image, I'll put down, for example, picture of a man working out. And then I'll put in here, courtesy of Karen or Karsten Weingrat on unsplash.com. Now, if it's an assignment you're turning in for class and you're not going to put it on the internet, you don't have to put that in. But really, if you're going out, you're grabbing pictures, what makes this stuff work? If you've never heard the term before, like much of the code that's out there today, even Microsoft is doing a lot of this, is open source, which means people put the code out there and you can actually look at the actual code itself and suggest changes. That's what makes a lot of this work really well. And I'm just of the idea that somebody's giving you something for free, just putting down on there, thank you. That's not really asking that much. Typically, if somebody gives me something for free and I want it, I say thank you. All right. Now there is another site as well, and if you look at it, so this is it right here. That's it. That's what I just downloaded. You can see the size. Okay, there's a smaller size and there's a larger size, etc. And I believe I've already shown you this, but I'm going to show it to you again. And that is, it automatically threw it into my downloads folder. All right. So I'm going to go over to my downloads folder. Oops, how about there? And there it is. It's called Karsten, Weingart, etc. Unsplash. You can see all that stuff. So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to open it with Paint. And let's just suppose, that's how big it is. Let's just suppose I want it to be half that size. Are you with me? I just want it to be half the size it is, but I still want it to look nice. You can go over to here and make sure you're in Home and go to Resize. And you don't want to do it with percentages. You want to click pixels. And notice it says 1920. Well, if I did my math right, 1920 divided by 2 is 960. So notice as soon as I put in 960 here, this number is going to change. So if I put in 960, that number changed as well. And now I click OK, and now it's half the size it was before. And it kept its scaling. Now, if for some reason when I did that, I don't want to do this, but let's pretend for a second that I wanted to make it 960 by 500 for whatever reason. All right, right now I can't do that, but if you look, there's a checkbox here that says maintain aspect ratio. If I check that, then I can change either one of these without changing the other one. See what I'm saying? Now, there's other ways of doing it, and there's very refined software. Most of it ain't free. But there's another thing if you want to start looking at this, because one of the things you're going to be, and I'm going to have to talk to you about this maybe next week, is it is expected that throughout the semester you're building a website. We don't have a final exam in here for lack of final exam. That's what you're going to do. And I don't know what you may or may not want to do with images in here. But there is, I'm not going to save this after these changes because it looks skewed now. But there is a free package that you may want to take a look at, and it's called GIMP. All right? And it says GIMP, GNU Image Manipulation Program. And it is free. Now, it allows you to do some things you can't do in straight paint. All right? But it's not as good as like using Adobe or one of those products that you're going to pay for. But you can do some stuff with it. All right? And I'm sure there's other packages out there. I've used GIMP before, and that's why I mentioned that one. All right. So I just want you to get used to this. You're not even asked to do this for the test. You are not asked to put in, I think you are asked to put in a header. You are not asked to do a nav bar. You are not asked to do a main or a section or an aside, but you are asked to do a header and a footer. That will be on your test. Did you all hear that? You're told exactly what to put in there. All right, but if you want to put these in, it just is going to give you an idea of how to start using this stuff. That's all. All right, so I changed it. Like I said, I modified it from up above. So let's quickly look at this because she might be here any second. So we are going to pretend that we've been asked to create a new website for the Wentzville Planet Fitness. Start by creating a new project. So you'll create a folder. You'll call it Gym Site on your desktop or wherever you create your stuff. Then, as we have been doing in class, create a folder underneath Gym Site called Images. Create another folder under Gym Site called CSS. Create another folder under Gym Site called JS. Any questions on that? Then go back and right under Gym Site itself, create an index.html file. We've done all this before. For some reason you still have questions, then raise your hand and ask, please. You know, and sometimes, think about this. Okay, it's tomorrow at this time. You're taking the test. Okay? You know, James comes up to me and says, I really don't understand what you're asking for right here. That's a valid question. And if I think some of the rest of you have the same question, I'm going to stop you just for like 2 or 3 minutes and explain it. But what is not valid, because I've had this happen before. All right. Hey, Mr. Scott, I just sent you an email with my project so far. Can you look at it and tell me if it's okay? No. You don't do that for a test. That's like, you know, taking a multiple choice test and saying, hey, I'm 50% done. Can you grade what I've done so far so I can see how I'm doing? That ain't how it works. All right. Okay. So after you've done that, open the Gym Site under Visual Studio Code. So when I say under code, that's what I mean. Again, pretend this is a real site, and somewhere in there, just put a hyperlink to the actual Planet Fitness site. All right, and what is that? I think it's pf.com. I could be wrong, okay? And you can even, if you want to, you can use CSS to make it look like a button. If you don't have time or you don't want to do it, you don't have to. You're not turning this in. All right, okay. Also, add a link to a new page on Google Maps. People are, what the hell is that? Well, it's not hard. All right, all I have to do is come out here and go to Google Maps. And I think it's maps.google.com. It is. And it'll ask me for an address. So, address, Planet Fitness, Wentzville, Mo. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Google Maps, and it asks me for something. There it is. So sooner or later, it's going to find it right here. All right, so I can literally, if I want, I can grab this whole thing in here, even though it's pretty big, and paste it in. That's a link to it. Does that make sense? Now, I'd like you to, if you have time, to at least try to make both those links look like buttons, because that's what we're moving toward. Okay, and again, how do you do that? You just go in, you give those each one of those links an ID, or in fact, even better, because you want them to both look like buttons. A lot of times what people do is they go and they create a class called BTN for button. I wouldn't use the word button. I wouldn't use words like that because it's actually used in HTML. But you come in there and add some padding and play with the color. All right, that's all you got to do. Okay, and if you say, well, I don't have time or I don't get it, then don't do it. All right. Under the navigation bar, again, try to do this. This will not be on your test. There will not be a nav bar on your test. Why? Because you're only putting in one page. There's really nothing to link to. All right? I'm hoping that I can have you work on this one, this pretest, so when right before we do our next test on chapters 5 to 8, I can upgrade this one. All right? So, add an H1 tag with the name of the gym. So you'll put Planet Fitness Wentzville or something like that. The home page should have a big picture underneath that navigation bar. Really not underneath the nav bar, but under that H1 tag. I just showed you how you can bring in a picture. Bring in any picture you want. Make it whatever size you want. Try it with a couple different sizes to see what you think looks the best. All right. So I said go to pixels, etc. Then they don't really have an exercise Ipsum, but they have one for bicycles. That's as close as I could find. So if you go out to that, just literally click on that link. So if I go and click on this link, I'm holding down here on my control key, and I'm clicking on the link. And there's bicycle Ipsum. So if I say put in 5 paragraphs, well, number of paragraphs. Let's just say 4. 4. There they are. So I just grab all 4 of these, throw them on that page, all right, and put paragraph tags before and after them. All right. Questions on that? All right. At the bottom of the page, add a footer. So a footer tag. And have your name in there and a copyright. That's ampersand copy, semicolon, with 2021. Include a tell link in here as well. Look it up. All right. And what's that doing? You're going to end up putting their number in there. So ideally, if somebody goes to that page on their phone and clicks on it, they'll be able to call it directly. Does all that make sense? All right. The second page should be an about page. Add images with links to 5 actual products sold on Planet Fitness. I don't know what the hell those are. And I will send you an electronic copy of this as well. I guess I should have. But if I hold down on control and I click on products, notice what I get. pfstore.com. So there's their stuff. Just grab some of these. And I'll give you a hint. The reason I'm having you do this is you're going to do something similar tomorrow with it than what we're doing here. If you get how to do this, you shouldn't have a heck of a lot of problems with it. And don't worry. I mean, again, the idea is get this stuff done. It may not look fantastic, all right, but hopefully it will. All right. The third page will be a contact page. For now, all you need to do is put an H1 tag on it that says contact page. Nothing else. All right. Add a lot of CSS accordingly. Now, tomorrow when you do it, it'll say make this dark, and it won't tell you what color to use. All right. It'll say use a darker color or use a lighter color. And remember, when you're doing this, there are all sorts of sites out there, such as, I think there's one called HTML5colorpicker.com. It might just be color picker. No, unavailable. Let's try colorpicker.com. And there's a color picker. All right. And if you say, well, geez, I don't know. All I know is I want some kind of a gray. So you come up here and you type in gray hex code. And it'll show you typically there's one, but if I click here, it'll show me a bunch of them. All right. So validate the site's pages and the CSS. It says include screenshots. Now, if you don't know how to do that, let's pretend you don't. All right. So I'm going to go out here to something else I've been working on. In fact, I'll use their page here. Okay. And I'm going to grab this. And you already know this, but so HTML validator, right? Of course, I got to learn to spell, but there it is, markup service. Now, this is theirs, not mine, right? So there's going to be mistakes in here. I can virtually guarantee it. So I'm going to click by file upload, and I'm going to put in here, whoops, the name of the file. I don't know if it lets me do it like that. All right, I'll do it like that. Choose file. I'll just grab one of these. It doesn't really matter. So let me just grab something that's in here, okay? This is a different file. Again, it doesn't matter. So I click check. Ideally, again, this is not my page. This is a page, an actual online internet page. But let's say it came up and it was totally fine. You with me? So it's going to look about that big. Okay, if you look up on your keyboard and you look on the top towards the right, about 2/3 of the way over, hopefully you all have a key that says either print screen or PRT-SC. If I literally tap that key right now, I just tapped it. Now I go back into Microsoft Paint and I open up a brand new thing in Paint. Now I can paste that in. You will be asked tomorrow that I think it's just one page and then one page of CSS. You will be asked, and I think it's worth 5 points total to do a screenshot of each one. So like 2.5, the whole thing is worth 10 points, I believe. And I think half is that they validate cleanly. And the other half is that you take a picture of it. Does all that make sense? Now, I'm still going to run it. So in other words, if yours, because I've had people do stuff like this before. So they go and they put a page of their own in there that they know will validate. Okay, and they get this validation thing and their CSS, and then I run theirs on the test, and it doesn't validate. And it's like, well, you get part of the credit then, but not all of it if it doesn't validate cleanly. So when I say validate cleanly, it should not have errors. It should not have warnings. Now, if for some reason, and this shouldn't happen, but it's tomorrow and you got some error and you just can't figure out what it is, or some warning and you just can't figure out what it is, I'd be glad to take a look at it. I'm not assuring you that I will give you a direct answer and say, Mason, it's this. But I might say, Mason, look over here and you'll probably find where the error is. I mean, I'm not supposed to, when you take a hands-on test, I'm not supposed to say, hey, when you've got a problem, hey, I'll fix it for you, and just sit down and do that. All right? And I believe that's everything, I think. All right? Now, what we're going to do, later today, we're going to create a new GitHub repository for this because I want to make sure people still get it. And I'm sorry for those of you who do get it, but tomorrow when we start, as soon as we start, we will go into that hot folder and we will create a couple things and we'll immediately use Git with it. So I'm sure that everybody will be able to get the stuff up and get it to me. Does all that make sense? We're not going to do that every test. We're just going to do it for the first test. Any questions on anything that's in here? If you do come up with a question later, then ask. All right? I'm going to ask that once she comes in here, I don't care how long she's here, but that, and I don't think I had, this goes without saying, please be respectful. Please don't get up and walk around. If you've got to go to the bathroom, please go now. All right? If you want to get a drink, get your drink now. I'm going because I'm out. So I'm going to go and get one in just a minute. All right? But, she is here to help you. And I think the least we can do is listen to her shtick, so to speak, so you know what she's about. All right? Because I'm done talking for today until probably about 10:30 or so. All right? 11, whatever it is. And then we'll go over this. Make sense? All right. Now, I'm going to pause this. All right, so I'm going to continue on as though I'm taking the test right now. Okay, so I'm just going to follow every step. And this is the kind of thing you should do tomorrow. Now, you won't have to worry about setting up the Git project because the GitHub repository, because you've already done that. All right, but just following the steps that we have in here today. Okay. Let me make that a little smaller so I can go back and forth between these, okay? All right, so I'm going to right mouse click, choose new, make a new folder, and we were told to call this Gym website, okay? Hopefully nobody had any problems with that. Then we're going to open up the Gym website, and we're immediately going to come in and create the following folders: images, CSS, and JS. In addition, we were told to go in and add an index.html file. So I will do that as well. Remember, when I hit enter, it's going to beep at me and say, are you sure you want to change your extension? Yes, I do. Now, the order in which you do some of this stuff is not going to matter, but what I will do is right now that I've got this, before I even open it up under code, I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose Git Bash here. And then inside of there, I'm going to notice if I do a Git status right now, it's going to fail because I don't have any folder in there right now for Git. So I'll type in git init, and you'll notice what happens up here as soon as I hit the enter key. All right, you can see I've got the .git folder there. Now, if I do a git status, it's showing me that I've got no commits yet, but this index file is ready to be committed. Now, it's not showing the other ones because they're totally empty. Yes?
So it didn't, this might have been my issue from yesterday, but it didn't add a .git file.
It probably did, and you probably don't see it. All right, so again, remember that when you do that, we went through this the first day, but we can look at it again, and that is how to turn on extensions. I should say file extensions in Windows 10. All right, so you may or may not have done this, but it says simply open File Explorer. So I'm just going to right mouse click down here on my folder and choose File Explorer. All right, select the View tab as shown, Views at the end here. All right, click the File Extensions, which is right here, File Name Extensions, to show the file extensions. All right, you can uncheck it, so yours should be checked.
No, the Git folder is a hidden item, so check hidden items as well.
There you go. Yes, you are correct. Both of them. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay? You'll get his bill. Okay. All right. So let's just continue on then. So again, right now it's only showing index.html. It is not showing the folders because the folders are all empty. All right. Now I do want to bring up to you, if you remember when we went through the GitHub page, there was some stuff we just basically skipped over. And one of those things was the git ignore. All right. And those are files that if you go and push that up to the internet, you really don't want pushed because they're not necessary. They're bloat, code bloat, which means there's stuff that's there that you don't need. The system might need them, but you don't need them to go up there. All right. So for right now, I've got my gym website now. So I'm going to right mouse click on it and I'm going to open it with code. All right. You've all seen this before. Okay, so let's go back and start following the steps that are in here now. All right, so it says you are to create this. Each page should have a favicon logo of your choice and the standard HTML attributes. All right, well, first of all, we've already got our index file. So if we come in here and we put in our exclamation point and hit tab, now we've got our template set up. That shouldn't be anything new. And I'm just going to put in here gym, and we'll call it home. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go over this stuff in here because we've done this twice already as far as going over what this stuff means. So that shouldn't be anything new to anyone, in other words. Now, when they come in there and they say you should basically start putting in your HTML attributes, I'm going to put in some of these attributes. Did you hear me? I'm not going to probably put in everything that's in there. And don't worry if yours didn't look like mine. Remember, when you take the test tomorrow, I'm actually going ahead a little bit and showing you some stuff that we've talked about, but that won't be required yet, at least not in this test. So again, typically at the top, so in here, I'll put in a header tag. Now, some people get confused because you'll notice there's a head here and there's a header here. The head tag, all right, the head tag goes outside of the body. Remember, that includes all of the information that the browser needs, but that we don't put in the body. It does not appear on the web page. The header, on the other hand, appears in the body, and that's typically what's at the top of your file. All right, then I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a main section. All right, and inside of there, I'm just going to make a section. It's not really that important how I set this up, but I'm just trying to show this to you. Then at the bottom, since I had a header at the top, you don't have to necessarily, but I've got a footer at the bottom. So now what it says in here, the standard HTML5 attributes, since this is so small, I do have a header. Inside of my header here, I will end up having in here a nav bar. All right. So I will have the header, I'll have the nav bar, I've got a main tag, I've got a section tag. I don't have an aside because this site is so small that I don't need one. Could I put one in? Of course I could. All right. So then it said, so we've done, I think we've done all of step 0. So let's double check here. All right. We created the new website for Planet Fitness. We created first the project. When I said start by creating a project, it really, project folder, whatever. All right. Underneath that, we put in images, CSS, JS. Then we added our index file. All right. Then we open it under code. Again, we're pretending this is a real site. So the first thing we're going to do, as it says in here, is we're going to link this to the actual Planet Fitness website on a new page, which means we'll want the target equal underscore blank. All right. And we'll also add in here a link. Now, this is going to be down further, and I know that, but that's okay. I'll put them in here anyway. They're going to be in my section tag right here. You all with me? So they'll be a little bit later in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go out to, I don't know if it's pf.com for Planet Fitness or if it's planetfitness.com. Doesn't look like it's PF. Looks like it is Planet Fitness. Okay. Whoops. All right, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put my A tag in. All right, in fact, I think what I'll do is I will put this into a P tag. You weren't told to do that. You don't necessarily have to do that. All right, but I'm going to put a P tag in here. And I'm going to give this P tag, normally I wouldn't give it to a P tag, but I'm going to put it in here. All right, I'll just tell you what, I'll just leave it in as a P tag. How's that? All right, now ahref equals, well, that's not right. We want to link to our Planet Fitness. All right. So that'll give us our link to Planet Fitness. All right. And we can put anything we want here. You weren't told to put anything special here, but I'm going to put in Planet Fitness home. Again, anything you want to put in there is totally fine. All right, let me get rid of that so I've got a little more room to play with here, okay? Now, in my A tag, there should be no reason I can't come in and say class equals BTN. So I'm putting a button class in there. And that's not for now, but it's for a little later, okay? So after I do that, really pretty much right next to it, I'm going to put a link in there. And that link that I'm going to be putting in there is for the Google map. You all with me? All right. But I want at least a few spaces in there. And we learned one way that we can make spaces. Anybody remember what that is? The HTML entity for a blank space? That'd be a line break. NBSP, non-breaking space. So I'm going to put about 4 of those in there. Again, it's not that you had to do this. All right, whoops. And then I'm going to copy this tag that I just put in. All right, without the spaces. I'm going to put that down below here. Now, why would I do that? Well, this is going to be the map to Planet Fitness. All right. And remember, I showed you this before we started today, and that is I'm going to go out to Google Maps, which is maps.google.com. All right. And I have to put the address in there. I had it up before, but I got rid of it. So address, Planet Fitness, Wentzville, Missouri. There it is. Right there. So I'm going to go back into, come on. Oh, my screen went white. There we go. So here's my Google Maps. It says start searching. I'm going to give it that address, hit enter, and there it is, right? So I'm going to just grab this whole thing here. It's kind of a long URL. I probably don't need every bit of it, but I'm not sure, so I am going to grab every bit of it. It's going to be really ugly in here. It's going to make this thing really big. And that's not the one I want. That's the one I want. All right. Now, were I to come in here right now, and I'm just going to do a file save, this is going to look really ugly. There's no formatting, right? But if I open it up in Live Server, at least I can see I've got these two things, right? That's a start. And maybe you think, well, you're kind of doing this ass backwards. Okay, then do it from top to bottom. That's totally fine. I'm doing it in the way these were shown here. When you take the test tomorrow, it'll say header at the top, and then it'll show you everything you should have in your header, nav bar, or not, there is no nav bar, a main section, etc., and footer. It'll all be, it'll be much easier, probably laid out better than I did. All right, now one thing I did not do in here, shame on me, is I should have said for each one of these, target equals underscore blank, so that this opens, in a brand new window. So we want that here. And we also want that here. All right, so I put target equal blank in each one. Now, sometimes people look at this and, well, yeah, you got junk all over the place. It's really hard to understand. All right, remember that anytime I can take each one of these things if I want to and put them on their own line. If that makes it easier for you to understand, then do it that way. If it makes it harder for you to understand, of course, don't do it that way. All right. All right, so now I've got this. Now, I'm going to save it again and go back to here. Now, once I refresh, it should open both the website, all right, and the map in a new window, correct? All right, I haven't formatted this yet, so there's Planet Fitness. There's my site. Close that one. So there's Planet Fitness. It did open that up in a new window. And here's the map. And there's Planet Fitness, so it opened that up in a new window. So I know at least I've got that stuff done. All right. Okay. Now, I'll worry about putting in the CSS at the end. You all with me? I'll worry about all that stuff at the end. I'm more concerned, and everyone is different in the way they develop. Some people write a little bit of HTML and immediately write the CSS that goes with it, and they're testing it along the way. Some people write most of their most of their HTML, if not all of it. Then when they get done, they write their CSS. There is no right or wrong way of doing this, is what I'm trying to tell you. All right? Okay, now it says underneath this navigation bar, which we didn't put in yet, so let's put in that. Well, you all know this, that a navigation bar goes under an unordered list, right? This has got 3 pages in it. So we're going to have an A, href equals index.html, and that will be our home page. All right. And then we've got 2 other pages in here. So the second one will be our about page. And our last one will be our contact page. All right. And that's at the top. And it says here that under the navigation bar, we're supposed to add an H1 tag. Okay, so we'll put that in next. So I'll come in here and I'll put in an H1 tag. And I'm going to say Planet Fitness, Wentzville, Missouri. All right, let's take a look at what we have right now. All right, again, doesn't look very nice because we haven't done any formatting. All right, but we already know that these 2 links work because we tested them already. Now this link works, the home link works, right? Because I'm already at the home page. We have not yet added an about page. We have not yet added a contact page. So if I try to go to either of those, I get an error. All right, one of the things that we'll learn when we get to chapter, it's later than I thought, it's like chapter 13 or something like that. We'll go over forms. And with forms, you have what's called a method for them, and it's either post or get. Post is if you're sending something, get is if you're retrieving something. All right, but notice it can't retrieve it, so I'm getting a get error right there. Okay. All right, what do we have left here? So the name of the gym, the home page should have a big picture under the nav bar, really under the H1. So again, we'll go back to code here. And now luckily, I saved this one. Now, it may look really, really, really too big when I put it in. I've already shown you how you can make this smaller. All right. In fact, I think what I'll do is I will right mouse. Well, I've got it. I don't have it open in Paint, but let's see. So let's see. First thing I want to do is I want to do a save as with this. I don't want to do a set as, but I think it is still in my, from before, it's in my downloads folder right here. All right. Now, I'm just going to call this gym.jpg. I'm going to rename it. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on gym.jpg, copy it to the clipboard, and I'm going to go in and under my gym website, images, I'm going to paste it in there. So I now have that. And as shown before, I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to open it with Paint. You can see it's really, really big, so I'm going to cut it down to about half the size it currently is. That may still be too big. I don't know. As of right now, I really don't care. All right. So I'm going to go to resize to pixels, and I'm going to cut this in half. So I'm going to cut that down to 960 and click OK. And then I'm just going to save it again. All right. Now, you remember when we went out there, they had that person's name on it. Unfortunately, I just changed the name of the file, so I lost her name. But I'm going to show you the before when I told you about adding that in as the alt tag. I'm going to put all that in. All right. So let me jump back into here. And so right underneath our headers, we can do it in main. That's fine. We'll put an image tag in here. IMG. And remember, there's a shortcut. If I type in IMG like that and hit tab, then Emmett takes over and it adds that stuff for me. You can manually type it in. It doesn't hurt anything. But for the source, I'm going to put in here images / and there's only one in there, so gym.jpg. For the alt, I'm going to say workout picture. Thanks to, I'm just going to say like Jane Smith Unsplash. So it'd be something like that. It doesn't have to be that, but it should be something kind of like that. All right. Now that I look at this, let's see. I've got that H1. Okay, that's all. It all looks fine. So that's what I have so far. Again, doesn't look like very much. All right. Now, one thing about this H1 tag, if you look up on the screen, some people would argue and say that what I just showed you isn't really part of the header. It really should go down below the header. And I'm not going to fight with you one way or the other. All right. When you are laying out a web page, sometimes it depends on the size of the company you work for. Sometimes you'll be told this is the way it is. All right. When I was a programmer for AT&T Bell Laboratories, and when I was, they literally gave me this humongous book that said, this is the protocol. This is how we do everything. You are not expected to do things in another way. On the other hand, if you go to work for a company and they don't have a website, and you're creating it, you're making up all the rules. All right, so it just depends. All I'm trying to tell you is if I grab this right here, and I take it and put it out of my header, all right, and I put it down here as an example. Now, you see how it looks right now. I have not saved yet, so you can see exactly how it looks right now. All right, now I'm going to come back into here, and I'm going to do a file, save, and show it to you. And guess what? It looks exactly the same. So really, it doesn't matter much one way or the other where you put that. All right, so let's see what else do we have in here. So we went to pixels. Under this, add the 1 to 4 paragraphs. So let's go find those. And you were told to add the 1 to 4 paragraphs from here. Again, it's not that big of a thing if we would have used that or something else. So here's our 4 paragraphs. I'm going to take them and put them back into here. Now, when you do this, by default, which means, again, unless told otherwise, all right, they're going to all be like this. In other words, they're all going to look really ugly, just like that. And that's okay. I'm a little bit anal, I guess. I've been told that at least. So what I'm going to do is for each one of these, I'm going to move them over so that on the screen I can see everything that's in here. Now they won't all line up, and that isn't important. Okay, you see what I did? Everybody understand that? Now at a minimum, I could take the next one, for example, this one right here, and I could just put a beginning P tag here, and I could put an ending P tag there. That's totally fine. Many people do it like that because this is just basically text that's going to end up being replaced anyway. So it really and truly doesn't matter which way you do it. You do it whatever way is most comfortable for you. Please make sure that when you take the test, read the instructions carefully. I would recommend when you get the test, before you write a lick of code, read through the entire test. If you have any questions, that's the time for you to ask. You can still ask afterwards, but while the stuff is fresh in your mind, make sure you understand exactly what it is that you're about to do. Just about finished. All right, so I'm going to save it and now take a look at it. Not there, right? Oh, come on, close a couple of these up. There we go. So now we've got our text. And again, as far as what's in here, this has not been formatted at all, so it looks terrible. All right. At the bottom of the page, add a footer with your name and the copyright of 2021. So we come back again. And in our footer here, let's put created by Jeff Scott, ampersand copy 2021. All right. And you don't have to do this, but quite often what people end up doing in here is they actually put their footer in a paragraph tag. You don't have to do that, but I'd say it's kind of an unwritten practice that most people do. All right, so if I just saved and I go look at it again, now at the very bottom, there it is. Questions on that? Now, again, I have not put in any CSS yet. All right, but what I'm going to do, and hopefully you did this too, if you didn't, no biggie. All right, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to save this one as my about page. So now I've got an about.html. All right, at the top here, I want to make sure to change this to about. Now, one of the things that we're going to be getting into in a very short amount of time is talking about like having a class here on whatever your current page is. You can call it whatever you want, but we'll probably call it current. And in that case, what we probably will want to do is let's assume for a second that we've got a black nav bar with white text. What we'll probably want to do is take the one that's current and maybe make that entry white with black text as opposed to black with white text, just so it stands out. All right. So the second page should be an about page. Add images to 5 products sold on the Planet Fitness site. All right. So I can get rid of everything in here is at least what it sounds like. But let's say Planet Fitness. Let's just put it here. You weren't told to do this, so you don't have to. But I'm going to put it here, products. Okay? All right. And I'll tell you what, I'll put everything in a section tag. And inside of that section tag, I'm going to have a div. Remember, a div is a division. We've talked about this a little bit. All right? And in here, I'm going to put in 5 paragraphs. And each one of these paragraphs is going to hold a different product. Did you all hear me? Now, there's nothing in there right now. This isn't going to look like very much. But one thing I can check out now is now I should be able to, okay, so there's home. I should be able to go to about. Again, there's not much in there. All right. And while I'm at it, again, the order in which you do this is up to you. But I know my third page, I'm going to do a file save as again, and I'm going to call this contact. All right. And this has got to be contact. And I'm just going to put in my H1 here, I'm going to put in here contact page. Now I can get rid of everything else that's in here except for my footer. All right. And if I open up with a live server, there's my contact page. Now it doesn't have much in it, but we weren't told to put much in it, correct? All right. Now I should be able to iterate and go back. There's my about page. There's my home page. Now you can also tell, because notice with contact here, if I put my mouse over here, it says Jim Contact. If I go to about and I put my mouse over here, it says Jim About. And if I go back to my home page and I put my mouse here, it says Jim Home. All right. Okay. Now the good news is, once I open this back up again in code, I'm done with my contact page. I don't need that one anymore. So I'm just going to close that one. In fact, I'll do a file save first, just so I'm sure I've saved. All right. And now I'll come back in here and I will open up my about page. All right. So again, what we were told to do in here is to add links to 5 actual products sold on the Planet Fitness site. All right. And I gave you a link in here to those products. So in other words, this is their products page. If it lets me go there. There it is. All right. Shop our latest tops. Shop hats. Now let's be a little bit, whatever in here. We'll put some of everything in, or try to. Well, I was going to try to. Let's see. Categories. Come on. This better move. I did not look at this ahead of time. So let's take a look. Let's see. Shop gear. Come on. Not let me go anywhere. Accept cookies. Do I have to accept them first? There we go. All right. There we go. All right. So I'm just going to grab 5 things. Really doesn't matter what you grab. To try to, for time reasons and the like, I think I'll just grab 5 shirts. Is that okay? All right. So click on this hoodie here. I'm going to right mouse click on it. Don't know if it's going to allow me to do it the way I want to do it. Save image as. And of course, I want to go over to my gym site and my images. And I'm going to call this what it is. It's a hoodie, right? So hoodie.jpg. There's the first one. Now I could grab this stuff if I really wanted to. And we could put this in as an unordered list, etc. You with me? We could do all that stuff. You weren't asked to do all that. If you wanted to, you could. Now, one thing I want to mention about that is sometimes people will say to me, hey, I went and did over and above what you asked me to do. Great. You don't get extra credit for it. All right. But if you end up doing that, I've had this happen in the past where people have done this and they screw up something they've done earlier, so it's now wrong. And guess what? It's wrong, even though you did more than you had to do. Plus, if you ever decide that you want to go over and above, once you've got it to work, please, please make a copy. I'll always remember when I was in your shoes and I was in a class, and the first program they gave us, I was using a very archaic language today called COBOL, which stands for Common Business Oriented Language. All right. It's not used much today, even though there's still 6 trillion lines out there. All right. And I got our first program done. And I said to the instructor, hey, I've got this done, but I think I could do it better than what they asked for in the book. And he said, Jeff, that's fine, but please make a copy. And I really understood why he said that. I screwed it up along the way. So I always had my copy to go back to, and you should do the same. All right, so there's the first one. I'm going to grab this second one here. Again, I'm just going to right mouse click. This is called flag t-shirt. So save image as, and this will now be flag t-shirt. All right, I'll go back and grab another one. Trying to grab stuff that's a little bit different looking. All right, so again, right mouse click. Save image as, and this looked like it was lines t-shirt or something like that. So that's 3. Save a couple more here. This is something different, I guess. That's another hoodie, but that's fine. I'll call this one hoodie 2. You can call these whatever you want. It's not really that big of a thing. But I've got one called hoodie, so I'm just going to make this one hoodie 2. And while I'm at it, I'll go back to the original hoodie here, and I'll call this one hoodie 1. Again, you don't have to do that, but you really should have some rhyme and reason to the way you name these things. All right? So this one I said we were going to name hoodie 02. All right, and then one more. And let's just grab, what else is anything? Oh, there's bottoms in here. Good. And this is jogging pants. Okay, now I've got everything in there. I haven't put it onto my page yet, but I've got everything ready to go. So I'm going to go back here and just put them in. Again, IMG, hit tab. All right. And source equals images slash, and the order in which I put these is arbitrary. We can put in anything we want. So let's grab, I don't know how the hoodie L1 became hoodie F1, but it did. And I'm just going to put Planet Fitness hoodie. I guess that's IE, isn't it? All right. And I think I'll have that one at the beginning, and I'll have the other one at the end, just for something different. So this will be 02. All right. Now I'm going to come in here and again, IMG tab, and images slash, and I'll use line t-shirt, whatever it is. So this is a t-shirt. All right. And boy, jogging pants, not jogging pants, huh? All right. And we've got one left here. And that was the flag t-shirt. So this is another t-shirt. Now again, this is not at all formatted. So when we take a look at it, I'd want to change the size of those. I think you agree with that. But the point is, I've met the specifications. All right, so I could go in, I already showed you this, and I could change the size of all these. And if I didn't like this, I could go out and probably go online someplace else and find stuff that was all the same size. There's a lot to be said about uniformity in a website. In other words, having this picture right here very much overshadows the pictures we have here. All right. Okay. So that was the second page, and we've already done the third page. Now that I look in here, it also said that on our footer, we were supposed to have a tell link. All right. So before I put that in, I want to go in and I want to grab, if I still have it, good. Somewhere in here should be a phone number, I would think. There it is. All right. And see, I don't remember how to do a tell link. So TEL link HTML web page. All right. Well, it's actually trying to set one up for me, so let's see. Well, that isn't good. All right.
I think it's probably the semicolon that's catching maybe.
You're probably right. All right, so how to create a link to call. All right, highlight the phone number. I've already done that. Click the hyperlink button, enter tell, followed by the phone number, and apply the link. Okay, so they've got an example right here. Now, this is an actual, real, more working example because there's a lot of JavaScript in it. You wouldn't be expected to put all that in. But I can grab this, and I'll have to replace that, of course, with the actual phone number that it is. I mean, it'd be kind of nice to put in the right number in there. And I'll put a BR in here. You know, call us at, and then we'll paste that in. I don't know, our phone, something like that. That's a stupid thing to say, but you get the idea. Where was that? Because of course I went and changed, there we go. Right mouse click and copy. Now, one thing about tell is it can be kind of quirky. So you're best off to put it in like they showed it there, like this. And again, why are you putting it in? Somebody tell me, what is that tell link for? It's the phone number, but who is typically going to use it from? Since it's a phone number, you're going to typically be using it from your phone. Would you agree with that?
Yep.
All right. So let's see in here. I'm going to save this, come back here, and open it up again in Live Server, and call us on our phone. There it is down there. Now, I should add that to the other pages too. All right. But you see, I've now got basically everything that I asked you to do. Now, let's come in, play with it a little bit, add some CSS, and see if we can make it look a little bit nicer. All right? Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure, so I'm going to start at the beginning. So the index page, the home page, is probably the most important here. All right. So I want to come into my CSS, and I thought I created that file, but I don't see it in here, and that's okay. So I'm just going to right mouse click, say new file, and this will be styles.css. I guess I didn't create that before. So the first thing I want to do, and again, I'm going to take for granted that you probably won't remember how to do this, or I should say, you may not remember how to do this. So let me close a few of these because you can see I've got 1,000 things open here. All right. So I'm just going to close a bunch of them right now. All right. So they show in here an example of how you can create something that looks like this. Well, that looks real similar to what we want. All right, at least for now. So I'm literally just going to grab all of that code. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. Since this is the only unordered list that I have in here, it's totally fine to do it like this. If this wasn't the only unordered list, in fact, let's do that. Let's pretend it's not the only unordered list. You with me? So we have other ones. So there's nothing wrong with that UL, but what I'm going to do is for the UL that's right here, I'm going to give it a class, and I'm going to say class equals nav. That's probably a good idea to do that because as I start building the site, the chances are pretty good I'm going to have more than one unordered list. So I put class equal nav. I'm going to add it to my about page here. And I'm going to add it to my contact page right here. All right. Now, in order to be able to show this in my CSS, now instead of UL, I'm going to put in UL dot nav. Does that make sense to everyone? So that says a UL with a class of nav. Since it's a nav bar, nav is a natural name to put in here. All right. Now, and again, I can do the same thing here. I can say ul dot nav space li. So that's the li's that are inside of a ul with a class of nav. And then finally, I can do this. ul.nav, same kind of thing. Now, if you look up on the screen, please, I'm going to put a little more than they have in there. Remember, I don't want the underlines to show because they look kind of ick. So I'm just going to come in here and say text, decoration, none. Save, and let's take a look. I can't do it from here. I got to go back. You remember, you cannot open those from there. So here. All right, so now I've got that. Now, again, it doesn't look great, but it works. And again, that's more than you are being asked to do. Since you are only creating a one-page site tomorrow, you will have a header section without a nav, you will have a main, and you will have a footer. All right? So I could come in here and just to show you a couple things, okay? Just kind of reinforce the stuff that we've been talking about. So if I come back in here, and let's see, we've got our unordered list, all right? We've got our LIs, and we've got our LIAs. Now you'll notice I've got padding 8. That's not really a whole heck of a lot of padding that's in there. Okay, so I'm going to change that padding. I'm going to put in here 1.5 rem. We talked about rem versus pixels. So all I did was change that to the rem right there. Well, I sure as heck thought it was going to move it over, but it didn't. Okay, and I'm looking in here. Let me get rid of the ULLI or nav.nav for right now. All right. For some reason, it's not picking up my changes. They're in there correctly, but for some reason, it's not. Save and go back to here. Still isn't picking them up. Oh, you know why? Somebody tell me why it isn't picking up my changes. Somebody.
You didn't link your site.
I didn't link. Thank you all. Been better off to have done that before I went and changed all that. 1.5 rem. Come on. All right. So I will put these in all of them right away. So I will start with the index page. Right under my title. Again, where you put these things does not matter, but it's a good idea, as I mentioned to you previously, to keep your meta tags together. All right, so I'm going to type in here link, hit tab, and in here it'll be css/styles.css. I'm going to grab that line. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. I'm going to paste it into contact. And I'm going to paste it into about. All right, and I'm going to do a file, save all. All right, go back to my index page and open it with live server. All right, it's giving me that. It still doesn't like my text decoration none. What that means is I probably put it in the wrong place. All right, but I've got the gray in there now. I can go back and forth, and for some reason it's picking it up on this page and it's not picking it up on the other pages. That's weird, but it's picking it up on the, well, there it is. It's on the home page and it's on the about page, but it's not on the contact page. All right, what does that mean? That means I should go back and look at the contact page. All right, so let's do that. Bring up the contact page. Looks like it should be. Everything is there. I mean, it's something we're going to have to take another look at in just a second because it looks to me, at least, as though it's correct. All right, now a few other things. What else do I want to do? Well, I might want to take my images. In fact, why don't I start, because we talked about this before. All right, and I might want some global settings. Remember, I could bring in the normalized file as well. Are you all, I'm asking this question. If the answer is no, please say so. Is everybody comfortable tomorrow if you are asked to bring in normalized.css, going out to the internet, grabbing that, and then putting it in there as a tag? All right. I mean, remember, you can just literally type in your address bar normalized.css. It brings you all to the site. And then you can basically, the code is right there. You can just copy it in. Make sure that you put the link to the normalized file above the one to your file. All right, but I'm just going to put in a universal one here. So again, we'll put in margin 0 and padding 0. And you're going to notice a change right away on here. All right, you can see it there. You can see it here. You can even see it here. I'm not saying to you I made it better. All right, but now I can go in and I can add whatever I want, wherever I want. All right. All right, I'm going to put a couple more things in here. So another thing in here, I'm going to put in body. Oops. Background. I don't know what color I want. All right. I mean, I could go in there and I can check. I could put in, I don't know, is there a light? There's light blue right there. Now, you know as well as I do, please look up on the screen here because I did not mention this to you in class before. I said we should get out of the idea of using words. But notice what's off to the right. The hex code for this. So it's pound add 8E6. So pound add 8E6 semicolon. I'm going to save that. We'll look again, and now I've got a nicer looking background. All right. Now my H1 tag that's right here, I've only got the one H1 tag. Again, I'm trying to keep this fairly simplistic in what we're doing right now. So I can go down here and I've got that stuff, and below that I can put in my H1 tag. If I wanted to give it a different color, I could do that. If I wanted to give it a different background color, I could do that. If I wanted to change the default size, I could do that. I'm just going to put here text align center. Save it. Go back and look again. And now that's centered. That's centered. That's centered. And that's centered. All right. So just a few other things. Well, when you look in here, look at our paragraphs. They look pretty darn bad. All right. We could play with the size here if we wanted to. Again, I could change the font. You know how to do all this stuff. You're not asked to do any of that tomorrow. All right. But I will come in and say, hey, for my paragraphs, just because I'm going to try to make them look a little bit nicer. All right. So I'm going to say, hey, for all my paragraphs, let's give them a margin of 1 rem, and let's give them padding of 2 rem. Again, I'm making this up. I'm not even sure how it's going to look. All right, but you see what I put in there, and now looking, well, that looks, okay, there's too much margin in there. See this? Still looks a lot better than it did look, and I pushed it away from the sides. All right, but I really don't need that much bottom margin in here. Okay, well, you all know how to fix that. Now this is 1 rem all the way around it, right? So remember, it's like a clock. Top, top, right, bottom, left. So let's keep that at the top. Let's keep 1 rem on the right. Let's put 0 on the bottom, and let's have 1 rem on the left. And we'll do the same thing with padding. Again, it's going to look different. Will it look the way I want? I don't know. But I've got that in there now, and that's looking a little bit better. You know what? Just because I don't want to monkey with it too much, that's okay. All right? But looking through this, so taking this from the top, all right? We did go in, we put in all of this stuff. We added the folders. We added the file. All right. Then we went in and started working with the file. We put in the H1 tag. We added the picture from, I think I used Unsplash. I don't remember. We went in and we added the 4 paragraphs. All right. Then we went into the footer, and on the bottom of the footer, we put our name and the copyright, and we put in the tell link. All right. If you are looking at this, because really another thing that I should have done at a minimum is not only, let's see, did I want to text align the center, the H1, I also wanted to text align center the footer because it'll look a little bit nicer. All right. So now when I go back to here and I look at the footer, it's now centered. Now I might want to do it with these 2 things as well. We're going to make these into buttons in just a minute, okay? All right, but again, I think at least it's looking better. Does it look great? Of course not. All right. We could center the image, and then it would look even better. But right now, it is terrible. Now, one thing that I do want to do with just the H1, see this here? I like to put a little bit more padding in there. See that? Because it's almost butting up against the picture. All right. So I'm going to come in here, and just for the H1, not the H1 in the footer, but just the H1, I'm going to put in some margin bottom. And we'll put in 1 rem. You never know exactly if that's going to be too much, not enough, etc., until you put it in and go back and take a look at it. There, now we pushed it up. Now, you're looking at that, and you might say, hey, wait a minute. Another thing, wouldn't you want that on the top too? Because it's almost butting up against the top. All right. So remember that when we do this, right now we've got margin bottom, but we can come in here and say margin, and that's now going to put it all the way around, but we don't want any left or right margin. So we can do that as a shortcut. All right. And now when we take a look at it again, now it's pushed over even a little more. See that? All right. How about this? Best way to center an image CSS. All right. Display block and text align center. Looks like that's what we're going to need right there. Okay. Now, I'm going to do it for all my images, and that should also fix the ones that are on my About page. All right. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say for an image, and I'm going to add that. Whoops. And it does not look like it's centered. And it didn't center these either. All right. Let's see. No, we don't need to do any of this stuff, so let's see. Well, how to center an image, W3 schools. All right, there it is. They gave it a class, yeah. We don't need the width. We could set the width and make it even 50% smaller than it is. We could do that. Now our picture is centered. Okay? Now we can do similar things up here. We can add margin. We can add padding. I don't want to just keep doing the same thing for you. Does everybody get what I'm saying right here? All right. You can add margin and padding in here too if you want to. But what I want to be concerned with is what's down here. All right. And I believe we gave each one of those a class of button, or BTN, I should say. So I'm going to come down here and say .btn. First thing is I want text decoration none. Make sense? I don't want that. I don't want the underline there. Did that remove the underline? Looks like it did to me. All right. So that's first thing. Then I want to come in and, well, let's see. I'm going to have to give it some padding. So I'm all the way around. And let's just, I don't know if this will be too much or not. Let's start with 1.5 rem. And we'll give it a background color, and I'm just going to give it gray. That might not be the best color to use, but it's the one I'm going to use, okay? And I'm going to give it a color of white. Okay, everybody with me in what I did here? I'm going to save that. Now let's take a look. Well, it looks blotchy. You get the idea. 1.5 is probably too much. 1 would have probably been enough. So let's make 2 changes. All right, so instead of 1.5, I'm going to make it 1. And then I'm going to say border radius, and we'll make it about 10 pixels. Put a little rounding on there. There you go. And these should work. Okay, we could center those as well. All right. They are right now, I believe, they're in the div. I don't know if just a text-align center would work on this or not, because that's in the button class. So I'm going to try that div right there. Not like that. Did we give that div a name or anything like that? Okay, it's in a section. And we put that paragraph in there. So let's see if we can say button paras. Para. Kind of a dumb name, but ID equals button para. I don't know if this will be enough to actually do the centering or not. We're going to find out right now. Button para. Text align, center. And now they're centered on the page. So that will be the kind of thing you'll be expected to do tomorrow. My question is, does anybody have any questions on what we went over? Is there anything that I did that didn't make sense? Yes, sir.
The CSS image, are you trying to center?
Yes.
It's not working for me. I'm not sure why.
Well, it could be a lot of things. First thing to look at is you know, when you go back, so now you're in the debugging phase, right? So the first thing that we want to do is we want to look in here. Probably, I didn't do this, but probably, since that's a major image, I probably would have given that its own ID or its own class. You didn't have to do that. It'll work fine without it, but I'm just saying, there, the more things you give IDs and classes to, the easier it is for you to programmatically manipulate something. Okay, but I've got the IMG here. Make sure your image tag is set up correctly. All right, so you should have image. You should be pointing to it correctly. Is it coming up on the screen?
It's coming up on.
But it's just not, okay. All right. So do you have this?
Display block, on the very bottom again.
All right, then I'll have to take a look at it individually. I don't know what the problem is. All right, the other thing too is, it may sound simple, make sure you go back and do a file save all. You have to make sure you've saved for it to take effect. So I'll come over by you in just a second. Anybody else that has any questions? I mean, hopefully, I'd love it if 5 people aced this and got 100 to start out class tomorrow. All right. So that's what we will do tomorrow. Like I said, I'm hoping that this helped going through an example like this. All right. But I think if nothing else, you're over prepared. I think when you see this stuff tomorrow, you'll be like, why did we do all this hard stuff yesterday? All right. So we will do that tomorrow, which is Wednesday. You get the whole period. Now, if you get done early, you got plenty of stuff to do. You've got, remember, those written tests are due Tuesday. Your homework is due Tuesday. Your labs are due Tuesday. All right. And then on Thursday, what we will do is the first thing I'll do is go over the test. Even if everybody got 100 on it, I want to go over it anyway and ask if there's any questions, and then we'll jump right into chapter 9. Chapter 9 is on Flexbox. It's a different way of looking at things, but most people say between Flexbox and CSS Grid, it's the CSS of the future. All right. And I'm going to give you a couple sites that you can go to help you. And literally, this guy has got some courses out there for free. You can take one or both and finish them in about an hour. And you can even have time to work on that. So the hope is that we'll do chapter 9 on Thursday, chapter 10 on Friday. Each chapter will take 1 to 2 hours to go over. So the rest of the time will be lab. All right. Then when we come back from the break, remember next Monday, no classes. All right, Tuesday, I'll give you another one of these pretests, or I'll add to this one. Then Wednesday, you will take a test on chapters 5 through 8. There won't be any Flexbox. There won't be any grid on those. Hear me? All right, so that'll be Wednesday. Then between Thursday and Friday, we're probably going to finish the book. All right. And then we'll take 1 or 2 more tests. But before we do, for your last test or so, I am going to show you Bootstrap. I've started to show you that yesterday. All right. And it's more quirky than it is hard to use. All right. So if there's no other questions, and again, Donald, I'll be over there in a minute. But if there are no other questions, then again, you've got about a half an hour right now. You can work on labs, homework, written tests, etc. Yes.
Why was there no list items in your unordered list for the nav bar? Or was it just unnecessary?
For the nav bar. Well, that's because I stupidly didn't put them in then.
Oh, okay.
Then let's look. Let's look. Okay, the question was in here, why didn't I put these in LIs? And the answer is because I screwed up. No, they should have been in there.
Okay, cool. I had it as a regular nav tag, and mine was a vertical navigation bar, so I didn't know if it had to do with that.
Nope. They should have been in there. Thank you. So now I'm going to grab that. and I'm going to copy it and make sure that I put it in contact. Now, anytime you see me doing, you know, make a mistake, please call me out on it. I'm not too proud. And I asked a teacher once, I got to be friends with, when I got hired for my first teaching job, they laughed and they said, well, we're going to hire you. And they said, you want to know why? And I said, sure. And there, two guys interviewed me and they go, because you're left-handed. And they were both left-handed. All right. I ended up becoming pretty good friends with both of them. But one of them, his name is Jim Krasicki. He taught accounting. And I asked him once, I said, Jim, did you ever like just go into class and just, pardon my French, but screw with people's heads? And he said, you know, I went into class. He just kind of laughed. He said, one day I went in and, you know, with accounting, your credits are on one side and your debits are on the other side. He said, today we're going to learn new accounting. And he reversed the order on purpose. And he said he had people that were just totally confused. And at the end of the class, he goes, okay, now for tomorrow, oh, that's right. I was only kidding about all this stuff, so forget all of it. Well, I thought it was kind of funny, but that said, I'm never going to do that. I've had teachers in the past that purposely tried to play with people's heads. This stuff's hard enough without having to do that. I mean, what am I going to get to sit there and say, hey, I screwed with Nick Cotner today, man. Did I screw that guy up? You know, he didn't know what the hell he was doing. That doesn't make me feel better. And did you ever see the scene? I think it was in, I forget all of them. I think it was in Rocky 3 when he, at the end of the movie, when he was fighting Apollo Creed. All right. And he says, you know, you taught me everything you know. And then Apollo basically says back to him, no, I taught you everything you know, not everything I know. I don't do that. If you graduate from here and you're better than me, that's great. I have no ego with this stuff. I want you to be better than me. All right. One of my students who got a job last week, all right, he's got his own website, and I think I started telling you about him the other day, or maybe I didn't. His name is Luke Gosnell. He used to be in here as a tutor as well as a student. And that guy he knows more probably about website design than I do, because he's been writing websites since he was like 14. He's written a bunch of free, or not free, ones he's gotten paid for, commercial websites. But he said that, you know, I was able to teach him and fill in some gaps that he had. That's all I can do. I've got another guy, he's a programmer in Madison, Wisconsin. He probably makes $200,000 a year. I don't make that. Here's a surprise. I don't make that. All right. She might, but I don't make that. All right. And you know, it's funny because I always used to draw a picture on the board with like half of or most of a rectangle. And at the top, I said, you know, we're the Titanic and I'm only teaching you the iceberg. And he said, you know, Jeff, he said, you're not really even teaching us the tip of the iceberg. You're giving us some snow that's on the tip of the iceberg. He said, there's just so much to learn. There's absolutely no way you can teach it all. And he said, there's no way we can learn it all. And that's the truth. That's why when you take these hands-on tests, you can use your books. All right. But again, I'm going to be walking around. What I don't want is, you know, if you found out something, you know, hey, go to MrHTML.com. She or he will answer all of your questions. No. I don't even know if there is such a thing. But you are expected to do your own work. All right. Okay. If there's no other questions, then that's it. Like I said, you still have about 20 minutes or so to work on this.